Paul Feinbaum yesterday on ESPN talked about what's next for Deion Sanders. And to be fair, the conversation originally started around Lincoln Riley and what he hasn't done at USC to this point in his career. If you're keeping score at home, Lincoln Riley had one solid season with a tough bowl game with Caleb Williams losing to Tulane and co. That was tough. Tough look to lose to a G5 school. And then this past season, with the returning Heisman Trophy winner, severely underperforming. So Paul Feinbaum has made it clear he thinks that Lincoln Riley is not the right guy at USC. But then he brought a solution to the table, and he said he believes that Deion Sanders would be the next right guy at USC. Y'all, this isn't as crazy as I think maybe some folks thought it was when they first saw it on the Twitter sphere. The quote here is he believes that, I'll start over here. The quote is, quote, "I believe the answer after this season," speaking to USC and Lincoln Riley, "is Deion Sanders. He's going to be tired of Colorado. It's not, quote, prime time. You put prime in Tinseltown, and I think you have one of the great combos in history." That is different parts of the quote that Paul Feinbaum had yesterday. Now, let's address the USC part of this for a second. I think if the USC job becomes available, in my opinion, it would be because Lincoln Riley left for the NFL, not because USC decides to part ways with Lincoln Riley. I think 3 years is not enough time to give someone like that who is transferring conferences, one, from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, and two, with his track record of quarterbacks and the way that he has really been the best quarterback whisperer in the sport for the better part of the last few years, you need to give him more than 3 years. So I would be wildly surprised if USC were to part ways on their terms with Lincoln Riley. But when you walk through this take from Paul Feinbaum, y'all, there's a lot about this that makes sense. There is. I mean, just assume for a second that Lincoln Riley leaves for the NFL. I think for Deion Sanders to be considered for the USC job, they'd probably have to win somewhere in the range of 8 games at Colorado for me to feel confident enough that he's the right guy. Part of that to me is like if you're USC, you don't have to take a risk on someone who's unproven. You can go and swing for the fence. We saw that with their last hire when they landed Lincoln Riley and what he did at Oklahoma. But when you talk this through and assume that Coach Prime puts enough on the field in 2024 to warrant him being hired as the next head coach at USC, what he's saying is right. You give him the in-state recruiting access that California has and what Deion Sanders would attract. I think that could change the game for USC in terms of just elevating their roster talent. I think you put Coach Prime in the City of Stars and you would pack the Coliseum once again. There's a lot to like about this fit. Again, I think if you're USC, you probably would go with a more proven commodity, but you could see the fit for USC and for Deion Sanders. And so that really is one talking point, which, again, I don't think is irresponsible based on how Paul Feinbaum believes Lincoln Riley will fare at USC. So that's that. But what I think is also interesting to unpack here, and this is kind of what I think leads to the meat of our discussion together, what's next for Deion Sanders in a post-Shedeur Sanders, Shiloh Sanders, and Travis Hunter world? And I think the belief right now is that he'll stay. You probably get mixed opinions on that, but I would have to believe just from gauging the Twitter sphere, it's like 55-45 that he would stay. But the more that I walk this out, the more I'm like, well, I think the burden of proof is actually that he would stay. The burden of proof is on those who believe that he would stay. Because you look at the track record for Deion Sanders, like he has, since 2017, only coached football with coaching his kids. He coached at the high school level with Shedeur Sanders. He coached at Jackson State with his kids. He's now coached at Colorado with his kids. And I don't pretend to know Deion Sanders personally or know his motivations. You could definitely sell me on the fact that, like, hey, he wants to impact young men. He wants to be at Colorado and build that thing into a superpower. If that's the case, I love it. I love that for college football. I love that for Deion Sanders. But when you walk this through practically, so, with things that you can quantify, does Deion Sanders need money? No. Does Deion Sanders have ties to Colorado outside of his time being there? No, he's from Florida and spent a long time in Texas. Like, those are his ties. Also, if his sons are playing on Sunday, is he really going to want to be game planning on a Sunday and maybe traveling back from a game from Saturday night before? Like, I think he's going to want to be in the arena wherever Shedeur is playing. I think he's going to want to be wherever Travis is playing. Like, I think he's going to want to go and benefit them in that way. I'm not saying he's going to go coach in the NFL, but I am saying I think maybe he wants to be a little bit more involved, or at the very least have a front row seat to a box seat to watch his babies do their thing. And I support that 110%. I can 100% attest to that and agree with that. So again, I'm not telling you that he leaves after this year, but I am saying it becomes a little bit harder for me to make the argument that that's the most likely scenario. I think the burden of proof, again, is on him staying at Colorado past this season. Because, again, coaching college football, it's a grind, man. It is. It is. Regardless of what you think about Deion Sanders in Colorado, it is a grind. And it takes every ounce of your focus and preparation. Do you really want to give that when your sons are no longer on the team? I'm not telling you I know. I'm asking the question, and I think it's a fair thing to unpack together. Here's one more thing I would say, though. We get accused a fair amount of like being Deion Sanders haters or whatever just because we have our own takes on Colorado. And like, it is what it is. Like, that's something we're not going to have an opinion on someone else's opinion, if that makes sense. We'll have our opinion and we'll unpack it together, but like, we're not going to have an opinion on your opinion of our opinion. So that's that. But I will say this. Deion Sanders staying in college football would be my first choice 8 days out of the week, because the attention he's brought to the sport is second to none. The new interest he's brought to the sport is second to none. He's growing the game. He's great for college football in that sense. And like, I think if he were to stay in college football and you gave me the chance to pick yes or no, I would say yes 110% of the time. I would love that for the sport. So does he stay or does he go? Remains to be seen. I hope he stays, full transparency. But I think the burden of proof, when you look at his track record as a coach and the fact that he hasn't coached without his kids on the team in a long, long time, makes that a little bit more interesting conversation. So USC, that's a whole other discussion that we would have if that were to present itself as a possibility. But I do think that it's not an unreasonable discussion to have of what's next for Deion Sanders after this season in Boulder. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.